Hi there, I'm going to talk to you about Browning's Home Thoughts from Abroad. Now, this is very different to a lot of the poems in the collection because this is where we start to challenge some of the expectations of a dramatic monologue. And I think in your writing, you shouldn't be afraid to comment on where the poems don't meet this genre. Because Home Thoughts from Abroad is much more explicitly about place than it is about people, and also we start to have this blurring where there is much less of a persona and the voice is more autobiographical or closer to Browning's own thoughts and experiences. So it's likely that the poem is very inspired by his movement to Italy in order to marry his wife Elizabeth. Her parents didn't approve of him, partly for religious differences, partly they just judged his attitudes and his political beliefs. So moving to Italy and thinking back to England seems to be the inspiration for the poem. That is kept quite universal by the title because you have the nouns abroad and home, which are much more universal. It's not explicit there about England and Italy, though the rest of the poem is. And really it creates a kind of juxtaposition of home and abroad that establishes the theme of homesickness, which is very clear in that first line, oh, to be in England. You've got the non-lexical onomatopoeia to show kind of emotive, natural voice. And the use of the temporal now is really clear that he wants to be there right now in April because of the springtime. And the poem's actually full of temporal references, lots of language and phrases that relate to time, because it is very much about wanting to be there now and the process of spring and summer that you find so beautiful. You see now repeated as an exclamative at the end of that short first stanza. And all of the images are very focused on the natural beauty of England. So some of the descriptions of tiny leaf and chaffinch, they're all very traditional, very peaceful natural images that conjure up the English countryside for him. And there is a suggestion that perhaps when you're in England, you are less appreciative of it, some morning, unaware. So the use of that adjective, which is placed in parenthetic commas, suggests that he himself didn't appreciate the beauty of England whilst it was there. Then you have this kind of listing, and after April when May follows, showing the way that England gets more beautiful as spring turns to summer. And you can see that in kind of verb choices and use of time, and the white throat builds. So the suggestion that the bird's song gets more and more beautiful as the seasons changed. I think the most interesting of the natural images is the personification of the wise thrush, who almost is a kind of embodiment of the English countryside. He sings each song twice over, lest you should think he should never recapture the first fine cabulous rapture. So that's that sense of cycle and repetition, the same beautiful images day after day, year after year. And I think that noun rapture makes it biblical, as if he's presenting England as a sort of Garden of Eden. And even the negative details, so the fields looking rough with dew in the morning is made positive. All will be gay when noontide wakes anew. So there, time itself is personified to show this sense of the seasons being so beautiful. Even though in De Gustibus he criticises England versus Italy and suggests that England is too transient and changeable, that transient seems to be a source of beauty here, and the idea of the seasons and spring and summer is what he misses in particular. And the poem becomes much more explicit in its meaning in the final line. You've got that brief pause at the beginning before the comparison, far brighter than this gaudy melon flower. So melon flower is this particular plant that he will be seeing in Italy, and you've got the X is this, the determiner there, to point that out to us. And gaudy is a very negative pre-modifier, but quite ambiguous in meaning. So, something that's very beautiful and showy could be then seen as gaudy when it's too much. So Italy is beautiful, it's hot, it's sunny, but it's too much. It doesn't have the subtlety or the transience of England for Browning. And so he seems to sort of mourn for his own lack of appreciation for the changeable English seasons whilst he was living here.